So Chandigarh Power Distribution Limited is recently taken over from the 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗐, a government body of the Chandigarh administrator. So with effective from 1st Feb 2025, we are 100% stakeholder of power distribution and retail business supply of the Chandigarh. So we have approx 2.4 lakhs of customer base, including the industrial, institutional, domestic, and some rural area also. So CPDL is fully owned by EEDL and a subsidiary of the CSC Limited. So our geographical area is around 140 square kilometers. So that it was the very smooth takeover transition from the government 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗐 to CPDL. There was no major outage or supply interruptions during this takeover. So we are managing the distribution system, including the 220 kV, 220 kV grid substations. We have 18 numbers of 66 kV by 33 and 66 by 11 kV substations. We have around approx 2,400 numbers of distribution transformer with installed capacity of 771 megawatt. So our peak demand in FY 2025 was 465 megawatt without any outage and without any load curtain. So we have divided our area in 4 divisions and 10 subdivisions. So we come to the topic. So basically electricity growth in India is approx CAGR of 7.06%. So in the recent National Generation Adequacy Plan, the data provided is shown here. So the non-fossil fuels are growing rapidly. So we have renewable energy generations, we have wind energy generations. So these are increasing in a very high speed. So India's installed capacity has reached around 520 gigawatt. In 520 gigawatt, approx 52% share is from non-fossil sources. That is from solar, wind power, hydropower. So we have crossed the percentage from the fossil energy sources. So from the report of 20th Electric Power Survey reports presented by CEA, the electricity peak demand projected to grow at a CAGR of 5.6%. That is, it is reaching around 459 gigawatt by 2035-36. Also, the energy requirement will be reaching by 3,365 billion units by 2035-36. So where is the risk of grid congestion? This is a systematic risk. So renewable generations and assets typically take 12 to 14 months for commissioning, while the major transmission projects planned by STU, CTUs are taking approx 4 to 6 years. So this is creating a structural mismatch. So also there is an inflexible thermal power plant that cannot reduce the generation below 55% of their MTL, minimum technical load. So this is also creating a risk of grid congestion. So this page is showing where the stress is actually building. So in India, in the year 2025 alone, approx 38 gigawatt of the solar and wind capacity has been increased, while the transmission lines created only 8,830 circuit kilometers, where the target was 50,253 circuit kilometer. That is approx 42% of the uh, plant target. So more than 50 gigawatt of the solar capacity was stranded due to this constraint of the transmission capacity. So this is widening the gap between the growth of clean energy, solar energy, and the system flexibility of the thermal plant and non-availability of the transmission circuit. Second reason is regional mismatch. So RE-rich states are Rajasthan, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, where the most of the small capacity RE projects are commissioning, while the demand centers are Delhi, NCR, Maharashtra, UP, and some industrial corridors are developing for industrial development in many areas. So interstate congestion of ISTR corridors are also a major concern. So we have already seen the renewable power curtailments in this year. So approx 2.3 terawatt hours of solar power curtailment observed during the May to December 2025. So this is enough to lamp the 4 lakhs of homes for a year. A single day curtailment of peak during the peak was 23 gigawatt. So this is also a very high power. Rajasthan alone curtailed 4 gigawatt between March to August 2005 due to delayed ISTS readiness. Also multiple times grid security stability events also generated on 25th May to 2025. So despite the thermal fleet was at 58%, and there was curtailment of 10 gigawatt of solar power, still the frequency rose to 50.48 hertz. So this was breaching the IEGC limits. So this high frequency conditions persisted for more than 20% of the time during solar hours in peak RE months. So these are the major grid congestion risks shown in the field in current years itself. So this is a major security risk for grid stability and grid reliability. So what are the root cause of grid congestions? So basically transmission, there is gap between transmission planning and execution. So right of way disputes are very higher in India. Larger contributors to ISTS delayed over 30% of the delayed line circuit kilometer due to right of way disputes. There are multi-agency systems. Multi-agencies are here for NOC and approvals. So this will take time and delay the execution of the transmission lines and grid development projects. This delays also increase the project cost. There is operational inflexibility also. So in thermal plants, there is 55% of MTL for most of the coal plants. So it prevents the adequate ramp down of the solar during the peak hours. Due to increased solar generation, so the evening ramp requirement power exceeding 60 gigawatt. That is, it is intensifying the duct curve effect. So earlier, this was not when the RE generation was not present. So in last 2 to 3 years, the duct curves are increasing due to high solar generations. So this 60 gigawatt of ramp up requirement uh, is is the burden for the thermal generation and required steep evening ramp up. So there is some market and regulatory also issues which is required by GNA, regime delays and viable projects. So what is to be done and what must change required to address these issues? So there are ongoing initiatives by Government of India, Ministry of Power. So green energy corridors, phase 1 and phase 2 are nearing to completion. There is phase 3 and phase 4 plan of approx 150 gigawatt for this RE power evacuation. So general network access GNA reforms are in the place and it will improve the grid uses, solar power uses. Large scale pump storage. So government is focusing on the hydro pump storage system and it is planned 94 gigawatt. That is 567 gigawatt hour of the storage capacity by 2035. So these projects will improve the grid congestion by uh, storing the additional solar during non-peak hours of the in the form of pump storage. Also, government is focusing on BES battery energy storage system. So approx 80 gigawatt is planned by 2035. So these plan are already published in the National Generation Adequacy Plan, which is recently published. So hydro storage potential has expanded significantly. Some projects are already going on in recent years. So there are some policy reforms and private sectors are also participating in the pump storage systems. So what the experts are still missing, there is dynamic line rating DLR and real-time thermal limits. So we have to widen the deployment of FACTS in transmission lines, STATCOMs, synchronous condensers, coal plant flexibility to be mandate below 40 to 45% of MTL, which is at present it is 55%. Mandatory co-planning of generation plus transmission plus storage. So in case of large generation installations, I think recently MNRE has made mandatory for the solar installations more than 500 kilowatt. They have to compulsory install the this battery storage system. So these will improve the grid congestion issues. So other is adaptation of the latest technology. So our power sector is in the transition phase. We are in the RDSS schemes. We are already implementing smart metering system, AMI systems. So we have to install these smart metering system in net meters in solar consumers also to monitor to real time monitor their load for monitor the load generation. So it will improve the for real time forecasting, day ahead forecasting of the generation of solar. Also drums are not at present installed or implemented in the India. So we have to foster the implementation, adaptation of the drums. So last slide is vision to execution. So India's challenge is no longer megawatt addition, but megawatt delivery. Grid congestion will decide whether 500 gigawatt non-fossil by 2030 is a success or a standard asset problem. The next phase of reform must prioritize flexibility, predictability, and synchronized planning. Thank you.